So they come out of the dark and they're going to chase you down with a harpoon. How do they know who's been naughty and who's been nice, to use the Christmas terms?
They just know. They know.
This is We Bleed Orange and Black, the podcast for Halloween and horror lovers. Join us as we interview creators, discuss our favorite horrors, and share original spooky stories. I'm Jeff C. Carter, and this week we're talking with Jennie Williams about her film NALUJUK Night. Jennie Williams is an Inuk Canadian filmmaker and visual artist from Labrador. She is the winner of the Canadian Screen Award for Best Short Documentary and the recipient of the First Voice Indigenous Advocate Award. Welcome to the show, Jennie.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Jennie, how did you get started with visual arts?
So I was always an artist growing up and doing a lot of drawing and painting and stuff like that. And when I turned around 21 or so, I started getting into photography. I did photography for almost 20 years and then started getting into filmmaking.
At least with paints, you could be inside, but it seems like you were venturing farther and farther out into harsher and harsher climates. What are some of the demands with photography and videography in Labrador?
That can be a big challenge doing photography and filmmaking in the north, because when I was documenting NALUJUK Night for 12 years through photography, on January 6th, when the tradition happens, it could be normally like minus 25, minus 30. So over the years, I learned different tips and tricks to use. When I was first doing it, like my camera would freeze up and the batteries would last a short time. And there was just so many things that would happen because of the cold. I couldn't focus very good because it was too cold. I learned to put those little things that you put on into your mittens or onto your boots.
The hand warmers?
Yeah. So the feet ones have a sticky side to them. The hand ones don't, but I use the hand ones to put into my snow pants or into my pockets, and then I put my extra batteries in there. And then for the actual camera, I use the feet warmers and I put that on the outside of my battery. I put it actually like all around the camera pretty much, and even on the zoom part, like I'll put it on there, and all throughout the night it's fine. Like even the battery, I probably only had to change it maybe once out of 6 or 7 hours of taking photos or video or whatever.
There's a brief shot in the documentary of people with brass instruments, and their instruments are all bundled up. And I was just thinking, my God, putting your lips to a piece of metal in the freezing cold, and then add on top of that all the moving parts and lenses and gear you must have been lugging around. That just seems like an incredible challenge. But before I get too far ahead of myself, what got you into horror as a kid?
I can remember really far back always being into horror films. And even now, like if I'm going to sit down and watch a movie, like I'd rather put on a scary movie than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
I usually watch one before I go to sleep.
Was there a parent or a friend that got you into it, or did you just flip on the TV one day and see something that moved you?
No, it was just myself. Even when I was a teenager and stuff, I didn't really have any friends that were like that. Like I was just obsessed with horror films and like scary stuff. And yeah.
Did your innate love of horror lead you towards documenting NALUJUK Night, or are those just two separate things?
Oh yeah, it was the horror.
Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like now we gotta talk about NALUJUK Night, your documentary. Can you give us, well, I was gonna say a brief overview, but I want to get into it. I am fascinated by this tradition, by the cultural figures, by your documentary. I know it's something you've been researching deeply for over 12 years. How did you get into it?
So I got into it like when I moved to Nain. I lived there for 12 years. I knew about NALUJUK Night before, but I'd never experienced it in the way that I did until I went there. So I went down to the community hall. Everybody was packed in there. Everyone was excited. I didn't really know what to expect at the time. That was my first experience. I was right up in front because I was already doing photography at that point. I had my big camera, and then all of a sudden I see like these scary beings walk through the door and then start walking through the crowd and shaking people's hands. And like I could see people's faces, how scared they were, but how excited they were. The little kids looking up and just the looks on their faces. And I don't know, it just like was really amazing to see something like that in person. And then to see them going through the crowd and they were just so scary looking. And I'm just always drawn to really scary looking stuff. So when I seen them, I was like, oh my God, like, wow. And their things that they wear are so cool, like seal skins and fox furs or wolf skin, like really traditional coats and sealskin boots, very, very scary faces and huge sticks. Sometimes they have traditional harpoons, or like some ones I've seen have like a piece of wood across the top with like a bunch of nails sticking out of it, like really scary looking. So as soon as I seen that, and I took some video actually of my very first time seeing it. I took a lot of pictures. The music was being played. The four of them would sit up into the front of the crowd on chairs, and then people would sing to them in Inuktitut, and then everybody would go and shake their hand and say Happy New Year. They would just be sitting there like scary as heck, like just I could remember hearing people say throughout the year, like parents and stuff, you have to be good or else on January 6th when the NALUJUK come, it's going to be really scary and you could get hit or whatever. But then seeing them there and being like, yeah, that's, a good way to keep the kids a little bit in line or trying to make them be good. That wasn't even the scariest part. Like the chase after that was even scarier than this first part.
So what's the purpose behind the children gathering to sing for them?
Well, if they sing to them, they're more likely to get a handshake or a treat. So they give them candy.
Is there a specific song they're supposed to sing?
There's one main song. Yeah.
Is it a New Year's song or is it
It's like a Christmas sort of.
a Christmas song?
Yeah.
It's in Inuktitut, right?
Yeah.
Is the idea that if you are a good child and you are keeping the language alive, that you're going to please the NALUJUK?
Yeah, they do like it if you do sing well and nice and loud and you know the words and stuff. That would definitely make them happier.
Happy New Year.
After this sort of reverse trick-or-treating ceremony where you don't go out, they come to you and they will trick or treat you depending on your performance, then it gets a little rowdier.
After that first part where everyone's gathered together, the little kids can go to that. So babies can be there and the littler kids will have a chance to experience seeing the NALUJUK and shaking their hand and stuff. Those little kids or the people that don't want to be involved in the chase, they'll go home. And then the people that want to be in the chase will come out, like mostly the older kids or the teenagers, or a lot of adults are also out during that time. And then everyone goes outside. Sometimes the community thing is inside, depends on how freezing it is.
Mm.
People will go down to the middle of the town area. You'll see a lot of people crowded around, a lot of excitement, laughing and screaming and singing and looking from every direction to see if one is coming, because they can come from anywhere. It might not be the ones that were there earlier. There could be any amount and all different ones. You don't know until you're there.
So they come out of the dark and they're going to chase you down with a harpoon. How do they know who's been naughty and who's been nice, to use the Christmas terms?
They just know. They know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So NALUJUK translates to heathen or non-believer. What is the importance of that term? Is that just sort of a catch-all for scary outsider, or is that specifically about what happens when you lose your songs, forget your language?
I'm not sure exactly where the term came from. If I spoke to elders or whatever, it was always called that, but I don't know why exactly they use that term, NALUJUK.
I'm fascinated with the role that boogeymen play and the idea of holding up a threat and saying, if you don't do X, this scary figure is going to come and get you. And if you're lucky, it's over a holiday. If you're good, you might get candy or presents out of it. And if not, you're going to get punished. I think it's so interesting that these heathen non-believers come out of the ice and you have to sing for them in your best Inuktitut. That's just an outside perspective. I don't want to put a narrative onto an existing set of beliefs. I love the way that it's very diplomatic at first and very polite and somber, and then it becomes child friendly, and then it becomes really raucous. It must be such a great release of energy. It's going to be a long, cold winter. You might be cooped up. A chance to get to run around and get chased just sounds like such an awesome tradition.
Yeah, I find it really cool. The way that it brings the community together on that night. And it's the end of the holiday season, and it's like a celebration, like going into the new year, encouraging the kids to be good for next year when they come back again. It's not just talked about that day, it's talked about all year.
You had mentioned that where you grew up, you had always heard about NALUJUK Night, but you'd never experienced it for yourself until you moved to Nain?
Not like that. Not like it was in Nain.
Okay.
I knew about it because they did have NALUJUK Night events, but it was inside, and the chase wasn't like that. It was never the same in Goose Bay as when I went to Nain.
I read that you interviewed elders from, is it Hebron or Hebron?
Hebron.
They celebrated NALUJUK Night there, and then they were forcibly moved by the government. Was there ever a risk of this tradition being forgotten?
Well, from the interviews that I did, I spoke to different age groups like elders and adults, teenagers and children, just to get everyone's different points of view. And when anyone talked about Hebron, when they got relocated, that's now why there's NALUJUK Night in Nain, Hopedale, and Makhovik. So now the NALUJUK Night tradition is in all of those communities. And it also happens in Goose Bay, where I'm from.
Nice. You used still photography to document this at first, and then eventually you jumped in and made a short documentary about this that I should mention has won all of the awards. You've won like 1 billion awards for this documentary. It's available for free to watch, and I really encourage everyone to go and do so. It seems to me like it's already a harsh environment just visually to film in. What motivated you to shoot it in black and white?
So the photography that I did all those other years and the exhibits that I did were all in black and white. That's the way that I do photography. If I do an exhibit with people, it's in black and white. So it only made sense for me to do the film also in black and white, even though that's something that's a little bit different, because in a lot of film festivals that I've been in, I rarely see any black and white films, and I knew that it was going to be quite different, but it was just how I like to do my work. So I was like, yeah, it's going to be different, but I just want to do it that way because that's how I like it.
So you've got that pitch black northern sky in January. You've got the white snow, and then you have people in furs emerging from the shadows or running through the streets. There's this incredible shot you have where someone is being chased and there's just little puffs of snow coming up and catching the light. It seems like such a fine line between all white and all black. You keep your camera trained to constantly pick up the contrast. Did you approach the documentary like a horror film? Because some of those shots are incredibly creepy.
Yeah, I did. Because that's why I like the tradition a lot, and just the way that they look makes some really good, frightening scenes.
Mm-hmm.
It was really interesting to figure out over the years how to shoot that with very little bit of light. Like I don't use flash at all. I can't say that much about natural light because it's nighttime. So I got to use whatever light that I can pick up that there is available.
Just the headlights from snowmobiles going by, things like that.
Yeah, and that's stuff that I learned too through all those years of photography. That's how I was able to get those shots, because a lot of them are recreations of photos that I've taken.
Oh, okay.
So that one that you talked about there, where you can see the snow and there's two boys.
Yeah, the chase.
Yeah. So that one, I took a photograph one year in that exact place with a NALUJUK walking towards me, and it was sort of like a shadow, and you could just see the skeleton face and the teeth, but the only way that it was lit up was from behind with a skidoo light. The light had to be right behind him, so you could just see the outline of him and then the little bit of his face. So when I took that picture, I knew that I wanted to get that moving, the picture, but moving. So the way I did it, like, I could have used a light. We had one skinny light. That's all we used for the ones coming in off the ice. We could have used some kind of light source like that, but the way that I wanted to do the film is how it really is. So I wouldn't let us go the easy way of getting the light and by using some kind of light to fill it in. Like I told them, the poor guys, I don't think they've shot in that cold before. And the two camera guys, my sound guy, and my producer, they were froze to death. But they did everything that I was asking. We were like, oh well, we could just get one of the people that were with us on Skidoo and they get them to drive behind and set up the light. And I said, no, it has to be a random Skidoo, and it has to be the exact one because that's how I took the picture. Like, and that's how I want it to be, like the real thing, you know.
Mm-hmm.
We had to do a couple, I think it might have been 2 or 3 scenes of that to get it exactly how I wanted because it needed to be a random Skidoo that was coming at a random time. I didn't want it set up. I wanted it to be real. So my camera guy, Duncan, was sitting in the backwards with the camera all scrunched up, and someone was driving with the 2 guys running, then NALUJUK running, and then I had to wait for the perfect moment of a Skidoo coming randomly from behind those kids and the NALUJUK to get the exact shot that I wanted.
So it really was documentary style. You didn't stage it.
Everything that you see in there is what's happening. Like we had one night to do this film, or we had to wait till next year.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible and hardcore.
Yeah.
Did the NALUJUK know that you were making a movie?
2 of them did, and the rest of them never. The ones walking in off the ice knew, but the rest of them that you see around the town and any other NALUJUK that you see besides the 2 that walked in off the ice, they're just random ones. Like I don't even know who they are. Like that's just the real thing.
Did anyone in your crew get hit? Did they have to sing?
I don't think so, no. But one camera guy fell down and he didn't get hurt, but like when he was filming, and it was funny because when we were editing afterward, you could see him running to try to get this really good shot, and then he fell down, and then the camera landed on the ground, and it was like right in front of it. He was like an older guy, and he got right up, and he got like this wicked shot right after.
Nice.
That we actually used.
So you love horror. You clearly have a talent for capturing creepy visuals. Are there any plans to develop NALUJUK Night into a feature?
I'd love to do that, yeah. I'm working on another film right now, but maybe after 2 more or something, I might do that.
So it's sort of a broad catch-all, but Slashback came out in 2022. Prey just won an Emmy. Blood Quantum was very well received. Are you interested in exploring some of those indigenous traditions and combining it with sci-fi and horror? Or would you want to do something straight? Because you also are a throat singer, you're a drum maker, you're a documentarian.
What I would love to do is take some really old stories and legends from Labrador and bring them to life on the screen, because I've been gathering old legends and stories from Labrador for many years now. I'd like to do some more black and white films about that. Like I like the really scary, intense old legends. There's like half animal and half person, and there's some really messed up stuff, stories, like really crazy stuff that I'd love to bring out on the screen. Anything that I do, I want it to be something that nobody has ever seen before. Like there's no film on it. Nothing has been done with this specific story. Like NALUJUK Night, it was the first time a film was made on it. But I do have plans for some more scary legends to come out. There's one called Helupiluit. It's a woman and she lives under the ice. So she don't give you anything, but she could take you away.
And the lesson there is stay away from the thin ice, stay away from the water, right?
Well, stay away from the cracks.
Yeah.
If the kids get too close, she'll come up and grab them and drag them under. I'd like to do a little thing on that.
Nice. This year, I'm going to start doing some standalone episodes exploring the boogeyman. Every culture has its boogeymen, and they're extremely specific to the people and the history, which I love. It's not just like, oh, it's a big monster with red eyes who's going to get you if you're bad. I would say easily half of them are about trying to keep children away from water. And you can just see throughout human history, the biggest problem has been kids getting caught out in dangerous situations where they can't swim or they go out on the ice, stuff like that. There's Jenny Greenteeth from England. In Italy, there's the hook man. He hangs out in wells with a hook. And if he sees a kid by the well, he just snags him and pulls him down. And it's just on and on. I love how exploring a boogeyman will tell you about the culture, what they value, what they're afraid of, the lessons they're trying to impart to their children. I think it's just the coolest way to go about it.
Yeah.
Did you also do Halloween in Labrador?
Yeah.
What was your experience of Halloween? Was it usually snowing? Was that just par for the course?
Oh yeah, there was always snow and always freezing, and us going out as kids with our snowsuits with like the costumes squashed over the top of it. Halloween was like my favorite every year just because I was always in love with horror stuff. So Halloween was always very, very exciting for me growing up.
What do you do to celebrate Halloween these days?
I have kids now, so we go out trick-or-treating.
Nice. Are your kids old school, or do they want to be like whatever the movie of the day is?
They actually make their own costumes, which is really cool because they're artists too. So
Oh, nice.
my daughters made their own costumes. My oldest daughter was a moth. She made her own like full moth costume. The other one was a snail. The little boy was like a really scary bear with like big sharp teeth. And my little daughter, baby Kate, she's 6. She's just like me. She's like a complete clone of me. She loves scary stuff. For her birthday, she wanted zombie babies. So I had to get her 2 of those like those little babies that look like zombies.
Yeah.
That's what she got for her birthday. Like she's just like me.
I can only imagine your kid dressed as a snail slowly dragging behind while the one dressed as a moth is zigzagging back and forth towards porch lights. That's such a great image for trying to get kids through the struggle of trick-or-treating.
My littlest one was Michael Myers.
Nice.
Yeah.
So what projects are you working on next?
So I'm working on another film right now with the National Film Board of Canada, and I'm doing another documentary, and it's on a carver from Northwest River that is a really good friend of mine, and he's an amazing carver and an activist. So he blends his carving and activism together, and a lot of the stories that about his carvings are about life in Labrador to do with like hunting and fishing and living off the land. And we did some filming this summer at a festival in Newfoundland. We filmed him his first look at his project that he was doing, which is he carved a fin whale skull, which is the second largest whale. And it's like the base of the skull. So it's more than 6 feet long and more than 4 feet high. So it was his biggest thing he's ever carved, and in the shortest amount of time, which was like 7 days or something.
Oh, wow.
Normally it would have been like probably years to do something of that size.
Yeah.
But he did it nonstop from morning till late at night for 7 days and created this beautiful carving. It has like a whole story about Mother Earth.
Awesome. Where can people find you online?
So I guess they can Google my name. Usually when you Google it, there's like all the different things that I do. Jennie Williams, Jennie Williams. If you put Labrador next to it, it'd probably be more likely that it's stuff about me.
Well, thanks for being on the show. Thanks for sharing a bit about NALUJUK Night with us.
Thank you.
Please subscribe and follow. Links are in the show notes. You can find me at jeffccarter.com and hit the link to pick up my collection, We Bleed Orange and Black, 31 fun-sized tales for Halloween. Until next time, stay spooktacular.